Alright guys, welcome back to Formula 1 news, and after the controversial end to the Monza Grand Prix earlier today, many people had flashbacks to Abu Dhabi and were wondering what Toto Wolff and Lewis Hamilton had to say on the matter. Hamilton has given his thoughts on exactly what they should do to make these situations better for everyone, the fans and the drivers themselves, should a situation like this occur yet again. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy, subscribe if you are new as always, I would greatly appreciate it. Good drive from Hamilton today, had a pretty difficult start, didn't make much progress early on, but eventually made a few passes happen, and definitely it was easier to overtake around Monza. I think the key thing really that makes these cars so much better for tracks like Monza is that you can follow around the parabolica much easier than you usually can. Like usually you lose so much time there because where you really need the downforce around that corner, the final corner of the track, to which point actually you're just so far behind that it's difficult to make the overtake happen. This time around it was much better for that. So Hamilton ends up finishing P5 at the end of the day. Now this was his initial reaction, right? Because actually this safety car probably helped him. When the safety car came out, he had a decision to make. Does he pit for new tyres? Does he stay out there? Because Perez decided to pit a little bit earlier. So they made the risk, Mercedes, to keep Lewis out there and try and hope that the safety car would go to the end of the race actually, and it worked out right, and he got P5 at the end. Had the race restarted with from the safety car coming into the pit lane and it going again, he probably would have been a bit of a sitting duck to Perez on brand new softs. This is what he had to say, but also definitely pay attention to what he has to say on the safety car situation, given all the drama Hamilton's had with the safety car the last year or so.
Today, would you have liked to have any more laps at the end, or were you quite glad that it stayed behind the safety car?
It was a good race. I didn't expect to. The guys were saying that anywhere between 6th and 4th was possible, and that always feels a stretch for me. But I had fun. I struggled at the beginning just with the car heavy and on the tyres behind everyone, and tried to avoid collision at the first corner, and ended up stuck behind alfa tauri once again. But yeah, I'm really grateful to have made a way through and got those points. I think at the end, the car behind, although I think the two cars behind had fresher tyres, so kind of glad that it finished the way it did.
Did you carry any damage from the contact at the start? Did you have a little bit of contact at the start?
I don't remember having any contact. I avoided collision, but there was something definitely damaged on I think I hit a bit of debris as it came off another car and damaged the little fairing over the tyre.
Yeah, that's what we were looking at. It looked like it was vibrating quite a lot. Okay.
A lot, yeah.
But did it affect the pace?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I mean, it didn't feel that great, but it was flapping around, so I'm sure that wasn't... I don't even know what those things are for. They don't even...
I don't. They've all got... Everyone gives them a different name. Eyebrows, all sorts. All right, thanks very much, Lewis. Thank you.
The race direction is going to be under critics, but in this time they followed the rules. Maybe they could have done it a lap earlier or let George through, but at least they followed the rules and they accepted that the race ends on the safety car, and this is how it should be or shouldn't have been. And
let's not get into that. Just one final word on Nick de Vries, a driver that you sat in your space at the back of the garage and talked to. You've seen his career grow. He's been a Mercedes driver, a champion for you in Formula E. How happy are you that he's delivered 2 points for Williams today? And what are your thoughts on his future? I know he leaves your cover in terms of contracts at the end of the year. Do you think he could go to Williams potentially?
I think what else should he do in terms of performance than what he has shown today? I mean, no training. Jumped in a car that he hadn't driven, straight into FP3. It showed what he's capable of doing.
So obviously in this instance, Hamilton's pretty happy the race ended the way it did, but there's definitely been some questions on this. Did the FIA, should they have done something different here? Should they have red flagged the race? Should they have actually just figured this situation out sooner so that they can actually go racing again rather than just drive around under the safety car for loads of laps and actually seemingly nothing happens? Because it was quite clear with about 3 laps to go that they were not going to get this sorted out in time and the drivers in the right order to restart the race. So Hamilton kind of benefits from this one could argue. Now, Toto Wolff has also given his opinion on this, right? He goes on to say that pretty much that was the maximum they could have expected today for Mercedes, P3, P5. That's kind of where they were hoping to be. On tracks that don't suit them, they probably are the 3rd fastest car. In fairness, they throw a bit quicker this weekend than maybe they usually are, especially compared back to Spa or something. So, interesting battle really, but in the end, Mercedes had a pretty good day, all things considered. And, as he says though, the race directors are always going to be under criticism, but I think this time they follow the rules. This time, obviously, kind of, well, in italics, I suppose. Maybe they could have done it a lap sooner and they accepted the race ends under the safety car. This is how it should be. So understandably, right, Toto Wolff is going to come out and say, look, they effectively made the right decision here in terms of what the rules said, which is, of course, true, right? Abu Dhabi last year, if the rules had been followed to the letter, would have ended just the way this race did. So I feel like, Toto Wolff is understandably going to say, well, look, I mean, this race ended in the correct way. The rules are the rules, and therefore they followed the rules this time, and therefore that's the way the race ended. It might not have been spectacular to end the race, but the rules are there and you have to follow them, which of course is fair enough and true, right? I don't, really disagree with the decision to end the race as they did. I just kind of disagree with the rules as they are in terms of the fact that like red flagging in these situations is never utilized effectively. In other series, they would red flag the race, give everyone a fresh start effectively with new tires, and then do a 4-lap shootout to the end of the Grand Prix. That would be, I think, the preferred way to do it. Makes for the best grandstand entertaining finish rather than this alternative, which was to the rules, maybe not the most exciting. So, I think there's a kind of conflict to be had on this one. And as he says, look, the race direction is going to be under criticisms. This time they follow the rules. So I think they kind of had to, right? I mean, they couldn't have done the same thing. Like after Abu Dhabi, they recognized the human error or whatever they said and the errors that were made. Therefore, they've got to be very clear and focused on what they do going forward, which is what they've done, and they've followed the rules to the letter. And it's kind of, the race ended in the way it did. But obviously, Ferrari, the Tifosi, were not happy about it at all, even though Mercedes were like, well, look, that's kind of how it should have been last time out in Abu Dhabi last season. And therefore, I suppose, for some respects, they're happy that at least it's been followed this time around. Now, this is Hamilton's perspective actually on it, which I thought was kind of interesting when he was told they're finishing behind the safety car. Now, in fairness, of course, Hamilton, benefited from this situation in this particular instance, because if the race had have restarted, he might have got overtaken again, ended up P5, which is probably the best he realistically could have hoped for on the day. But he says in situations like this, they should just extend the race. This is pretty interesting because under a safety car condition, the drivers do use much less fuel, right? You don't have to expend anywhere near as much fuel. Now, the question is really, can you really just extend the race? In something like, football, for example, if there's an issue, if there's a delay, an injury or whatever, they just extend the game, right? They do, added time, injury time, whatever, like +4, +5, +6 minutes, whatever it takes to get to the appropriate amount of playing time. You could argue they should do the same thing in Formula 1, where you just extend the race to have an appropriate amount of race time. The problem is, of course, that you've got fuel to consider and all these other questions where you can't really do more than, a certain amount of laps, because otherwise you're going to run out of fuel. So that is a problem. But, Hamilton might have a point to some degree in that, maybe because you're going under the safety car, you might use 1 to 2 laps less fuel during that time. There might be a way to extend the race by a couple of laps to compensate for that and therefore allow the safety car to come in time. So that's a possibility, I suppose, to add more laps onto the race if the safety car is going for quite some time and you can actually calculate that would be the case. As I say, my preference would be to red flag these situations and have them go from the positions before the safety car came out. But at the same time, they probably didn't execute very well, but the rules were followed. So it's a bit of an interesting one. Would you guys change the rules going forwards to kind of promote more red flags to happen in these situations? Are you happy with the way it ended? But, I just think it's, the way these races end, you don't really want for, the peak of motorsports for this to be the way that races can end on a relatively consistent basis. Very much intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you are new, take care, and I'll see you next time.